and I said I'd like to play him as a Glaswegian thug.
So he says, I want to play him like this. I want he's a real bastard. I want to play him like that.
And so Chuck Heston's son looked at me and he said, Oliver, and I said, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say that in America they're not going to be able to understand me. But as long as I make the air move around me, surely that's what matters, doesn't it, in cinema.
Hi everyone, I'm in a little village called Buttervant in County Cork to find the final resting place of Oliver Reed. Rawr! He was a brute of a man, wasn't he? But a big drinker and an enormous character. Had a hell of a lot of charisma, didn't he? That's why he was so popular. And this, believe it or not, this very unassuming little bar is where he used to drink. It doesn't look much, does it? No. And over there, opposite, you can't quite see it, there's an extremely old graveyard, and that's where he's buried. So let's go find his final resting place. There's usually a few pints of alcohol there. I was hoping the pub would be open because it's closed, I think, permanently. It's a cute little village. Have a look. Look, very sort of, I don't know, like a little, quaint little village with nothing much to signify why I liked it so much. I think he liked Ireland because people didn't treat him special there. He felt more at home, and I think that's why Oliver really enjoyed this area. He started off in films just being an extra, and I think he got noticed for his star ability, his sort of charisma. His first role was in the 1960s Sword of Sherwood Forest, but he wasn't really elevated to a star at that point. The first programme that actually made him very prominent and sort of like a star, Sebastian in It's Dark Outside, and that really sort of rocketed him up a bit. People started to notice he had some presence about him. There it is behind me, Churchtown Cemetery. So we're going to head in and find Oliver. He's on the back wall somewhere, just somewhere down there. Carol Reed was Oliver's uncle, and he was responsible for the stage version of Oliver. The film won an Academy Award, and it was an excellent film, wasn't it? Harry Seacombe and Jack Wilde, the Artful Dodger. I've just done his grave, by the way, if you want to watch that, it's on the channel. So yeah, it was an excellent production. It couldn't be bettered, really. The thing about Oliver Reed was his reputation for drinking really sort of set him up. I think, if you ask my opinion, I think it was exaggerated slightly. I think he was a drinker, but I think they played along the role. But I'm not sure. I've seen little bits about that. He was a big friend of Keith Moon, and he's notorious, wasn't he, for his wild antics. So let's have a look at the graveyard. I'll spin you around. Very small, isn't it? And very old. And he's somewhere on the back wall, so we haven't got far to go. It's probably the only one that looks quite modern, in a way. Yeah. Very, very, I think it's a 16th century graveyard. I've read many stories about his wild antics when he was drunk. I think he was in the Crazy Elephant bar in London, and two guys followed him out. They'd had a sort of little fracas in the pub, and he got knifed. He had 63 stitches, and they said that could have been the end of his career. And no doubt that's all down to the booze again. Cat down here. This looks a bit weird, doesn't it? Hello, Puskins. Hello. Look at him. Hey. Ooh, hello. I know him and Keith Moon were on Tommy together, so no doubt when they weren't acting there was quite a lot going on in the old beer. I love the story about him and Alan Bates in Women in Love. They were going to do this nude wrestling scene, and they were very scared who had the bigger you-know-what. And they both drank a bottle of vodka each to get the courage up. Started the wrestling scene and then found out there was no need to worry, they were both very similar, you know. There was no difference really, and it went well, but it just shows you how men do worry about things like that. Ridiculous, isn't it? That particular fighting scene was filmed at Bromley Hall, which was his property. It was a 16th century mansion house, and he was trying to bring it back to his former glory. I watched the documentary. Absolutely massive, costing an absolute fortune. Poor Oliver and his wallet, my God. I was watching him on Michael Aspel, and he was absolutely hilarious. He had such a good timing and sense of humour, and of course he had that character to put the role. It's great at everything, the mimicking and the fun. And my classmate was asking about the drinking. He said, yes, I drank 106 pints in 2 days. Can you imagine that? Oh my God. I just don't think I could survive that, honestly, but he did. He really did. In 2016, Omad Djalali, who was a co-star on Gladiator, said he wasn't drinking during the filming, but it just wasn't true. Maybe during the week he wasn't drinking, but at the weekend when they weren't filming, he was packing it away. And yeah, he told Ridley Scott he would not drink during the filming of that film, Gladiators, but it was a lie. He did. And of course, in a way, the way that he ended was quite sad and quite appropriate in a way, because on the 2nd of May 2000, he was filming Gladiator, and he took on some Royal Marines from HMS Cumberland, drinking, of course, what else? And unfortunately, it just became too much, and he had a heart attack. The ambulance were called, and whilst he was in the ambulance, he died. And if you think about it, he was only 61. It is tragic, isn't it? Because he was a burly, strong man, and very probably would have lived a lot longer if it hadn't been for all that excessive drinking. And what a way to go, challenging other people to drinking. I think it's quite sad, but of course he probably packed a lot into his life. I remember Richard Harris once on TV saying to a woman from Alcohol Anonymous, he said, have you had such wonderful times as me? I've drunk a battleship. And he went into all these things he'd done, and she looked shocked, and he said, and what have you done? And she couldn't say anything. So it's sometimes not the number of years, it's what you do with them, isn't it? Maybe Oliver lived a similar lifestyle.
Oliver Reed was born in Wimbledon in 1938. Didn't exactly dream of being Shakespeare as a kid. In fact, he dodged school whenever he could and ended up doing all sorts of odd jobs. Think bouncer, a bit of delivery work, just a general jack of all trades stuff. Before he was knocking back drinks on the screen, he was probably knocking back a few rowdy customers in line at the door. Eventually those colourful gigs gave him a bit of grit and he got noticed, and that is how he stumbled into acting. Oliver Reed's career took off really in the 1960s with his breakout role as Bill Sykes in Oliver. He became known for playing these tough and sometimes wild characters, and he kept his momentum going throughout films like Women in Love. Then I have to mention his swashbuckling turn in the Three Musketeers series in the 1970s, which added a bit of humour and flair to his filmograph. And of course he wrapped up this legendary career with the role of Proximo in Gladiator. Oliver Reed was quite a character and had a colourful family life. He married twice, first to Kate Byrne and then to Josephine Birch. He had a son named Mark in his later years. He really made his mark by buying and restoring a place called Broome Hall, a stately home in Surrey. It became a huge passion of his, and he poured a lot of love and money into it. So Broome Hall was really his final retreat and a big part of his life.
So in 1999, Oliver Reed was in this pub in Malta called The Pub. And typically he was drunk, but an arm wrestling men probably half his age, when unfortunately he suffered a heart attack. It was kind of a fitting way for Oliver in a way to go, wasn't it? But sad. But the man had lived the life he wanted to live and he was a fine actor. They got him into the ambulance, they could not revive him, and that was the final curtain. But what a man. It's not a very big graveyard. I'm going to spin you and we'll move in and have a look at the gravestone. And there it is. Quite a plain stone, really. Very small area. He's got his own sort of walled off bit. There we go. Hello, Oliver. It's a privilege to do this today. You were one heck of a character. What charisma you had on screen. Thank you, Oliver, for all the entertainment. Nice stone, very simple. So we've got a cross at the top, look. Then it says Robert Oliver Reed, 1938 to 1999. He made the air move. Yeah. Hey, oh yes, there is a little bottle there, isn't there, of the bevy. I thought there might be more than that actually. Yep. Then we've got a beer mat. There we are. Somebody's signed it. Yeah. Little glass thing at the bottom. And have a look at the back, you never know. Yep. I like it. There we are at the back, got the beer. Thought there might be. Nice spot though, isn't it? Quiet. Small. It's got trees in front. It said you could see the bar, but you can't. I mean, the entrance is over there. It'd be impossible to see the bar, but it's as good as it could be, I guess. There we are. Thank you, Oliver. It's a privilege to be here to do this. Well, Oliver, you've brought a lot of entertainment. You're a fantastic actor, and you lived the life you wanted to live. That's all I can say. He did, didn't he? You know, I watched him on many things. I always enjoyed watching him, whether it were documentaries or interviews or films. He was a great actor. Played with Roger Moore in The Saint quite a few times. Probably not his most charismatic in that roles, but he was good. He had that oof on screen, didn't he? He sprang out, sort of thing. Yeah. Thank you, Oliver. What more can I say? It's a privilege. So there we go. A lot of people will sort of say maybe he spoilt his life, but I don't think he did, because I don't say we should drink like that, but he lived the life he wanted to live, and he probably packed a lot into his life. So we all do what we should do, but sometimes we can't help it, you know. Like I just did George Best, and he was an alcoholic, and it can be a shame, can't it, when they try and stop. But there we are. What a great character he was. So whatever we're doing, whatever we live, remember, we do the best we can do. Every human being gets up, whatever problems they have, they do the best they can do that day. That's all you can do, and most people do more good than bad. So if somebody berates you for something small, don't let it bring you down. So if you enjoyed the film today, don't forget to subscribe. It's free. Give me a thumbs up and a comment, because you know I love the comments. I always say it, but it is true. I do love the comments. I love to read what you've got to say. And I'll see you all very soon on Motor on Beep Beep. Look after yourself, everyone. Take care. Bye from me, Alan. Bye-bye. Why don't you try out my new channel? It's the same name almost. Motor on Beep Beep, but it's got travel on the end. I'm going to check out some hotels. Try and show the good bits, the bad bits. Be fair. But most of all, try and get the best bang for your buck. Let's have some fun. Come over and join me.